Good evening. Again, welcome to our home. Thank you for attending. This week on My Thoughts, we'll continue with our in-depth examination of Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, with the fifth Mishnah in the first chapter. Now, the fourth Mishnah introduced us to not one, but two sages. It seemed that, again, after the death of Antigonus Isocho, the next several generations were led by what we called zugot, pairs of sages, rather than one leader. The second sage that's mentioned, Yosef ben Yochanan Ishalayim, is again mentioned in the fifth Mishnah. He expounded on Shimon HaTzadik's principle of kindness. He was a paradigm of hospitality. So the Mishnah refers to him, in fact, as the leader of Jerusalem, since he resided in the holy city of Jerusalem. The nation was commanded by God Almighty in the Torah to visit the holy city of Jerusalem and the holy temple on all three of the festivals. This created a great need for housing, hospitality, since the pilgrims were required to spend at least one night within the city on the holidays of Pesach and Shavuot. On Sukkot, they would have remained in Jerusalem for all 7 days of the holiday, in addition to the 8th day, Shmini Atzeret. Now, the Mishnah opens with the words, "Let your house be open wide, and treat the poor as members of your household." These opening words connect us with our forefather, Avraham Avinu, Abraham our father. It was said that his house was open wide, since his tent was open on all four sides in order to provide easy access for all those who were in need of his hospitality. Now, the word posach, opened, is also connected to the mitzvah, the commandment of charity. When someone closes their hand, all of their fingers are the same length. However, when they open their hand, then each finger is a different length. So too when caring for the needs of other people. Different people have different needs. One size does not fit all. One should not give with just larvacha, an open hand. One should give hospitality with what we call an ayin yafa, with a good eye, generously. Now, the Hebrew word ravacha, which is translated here as wide, can also mean profit. This would allow us to interpret the verse to mean, let your house be open to making a profit. A person's approach to this mitzvah should be the same as a businessman who is constantly searching for more opportunities to increase his profits and his sales. So too on a spiritual level. A person should constantly be searching for more opportunities, mitzvot, to increase their spiritual portfolio. Now, the Rambam, Maimonides, rules in Hilchos Matanos Aniyim that our sages commanded that one's domestic employees should be chosen from among the poor and orphan of the nation, rather than from non-Jewish servants. If an individual allows those that are less fortunate to be treated as part of the members of his household, he increases his mitzvot and receives merits each and every moment. The Rambam taught there is no greater or more elaborate joy than to gladden the hearts of orphans, widows, and strangers. One who does so is compared to the divine presence itself. It also states in Vayikra Rabbah that more than the poor man needs the rich man needs the poor. The poor man receives sustenance that is essential for his survival in this world. Our sages tell us that God actually created poverty to provide people the opportunity to fulfill their needs through acts of kindness. Based on this view, the poor man is not simply a recipient of charity. What he is a catalyst which enables the rich man to receive blessings that are essential for him to acquire his portion in the world to come. The Shalach HaKadosh says that we learn from this that when God Almighty loves a person, he sends him a gift. That gift is a poor man. God allows him the opportunity to perform the good deed of loving kindness with the poor. When this individual performs such a deed, God makes a mark on his head, so that when the person approaches his time of judgment, the executing angel should know not to touch him. God was about to destroy Sodom, but first he provided Avram Avinu with the merit of entertaining the three angels, so that through that act he would have the merit to save his nephew Lot. This is the meaning in the verse. Lot was saved in the merit of Avram. God remembered the kindness that he extended to the angels. There's a story told of Reb Zusha. Before he revealed himself to the world, he would travel from town to town as an itinerant beggar, praying for the needs of those who were experiencing difficulties. Well, he looked the part. He had a scraggly beard. He wore an old patched-up coat that was kept together with a rope that was tied around his waist. So it happened that once he spent a Shabbos in his small town. There was a custom in many Jewish communities that all the poor men would congregate at the back of the synagogue. Then after the Shabbat evening prayers concluded, the shamus, the sexton, would direct them to different congregants' homes. The host would then escort his guests to his house for the Friday night Shabbat meal. It happened that after all the poor were sent on their way, well, Reb Zusha was still standing there. So the shamus reluctantly took him back to his house. As the shamus was preparing the meal, he looked at Reb Zusha. Reb Zusha was sitting at the dining room table, and he was kissing his hands. Reb Zusha saw the shamus shaking his head and looking at him strangely. He said, "Well, I can see that you must think that I'm a bit crazy. But please, let me explain. All year long in Esrog, a citron stays on a tree and no one pays it much attention. However, 1 week of the year on Sukkot, well, everyone holds it and blesses it. True, I am a nobody and a nothing. However, tonight, since you have brought me to your house for the Shabbat meal to fulfill the mitzvah of Hachnosis Orchin, of taking in guests, that makes me a holy object through which you are performing a mitzvah. So I ask you, shouldn't I kiss myself?" The Mishnah states that the poor that you invite into your home should be more than guests. They should be treated as b'nei beisecha, like members of your family. In fact, our sages tell us that even if you are accustomed to eating small portions, when you entertain guests at your Shabbat table, well, you should purposely take larger portions so that all your guests will feel comfortable eating more. It happened that Yisrael of Rizhin and Reb Chaim of Sosov were sharing a meal together. Shortly after they began the meal, the Rizhiner pushed his plate away. Reb Chaim was surprised. So he asked the Rizhiner if he was finished eating already. The Rizhiner replied that before his soul had entered into this world, he made a condition with his body that he would only take from this world that which was absolutely necessary and no more. Well, when Reb Chaim heard his explanation, he too stopped eating. Well, the Rizhiner looked at him with a big smile. He said to him, did you also make the same condition with your body? Reb Chaim shook his head. He said, "No, I didn't." He said, "Do you know why on Friday night when we come home from the synagogue, we sing the song, Shalom Aleichem? It's to greet the two angels that accompany us home from the evening prayer from shul. However, what is strange is that in the last stanza of this prayer, Shalom Aleichem, it ends with Seischem L'Shalom. We bid these angels farewell, goodbye." He turned to the Rizhiner and asked, "Why bid them farewell? The meal hasn't even begun yet." He answered, "Angels don't eat, and a person doesn't feel comfortable eating in the company of someone else who isn't eating with them." In addition, the word poor doesn't always mean financially. There are people who are depressed and they need cheering up. Others are lonely and are in need of company. Some people may have money, but they are alone and strangers in your town. Let your house be open wide to all their needs. There's a story told about, again, Reb Zusha and his brother, Reb Elimelech of Lezentz, before they became famous. It happened that they came to a town and asked the richest man in the town for hospitality. Well, the rich man declined. He told them to go down the road and that the butcher would be more than happy to offer them a place to sleep and eat. Some time later, when they had gained fame and recognition for their Torah knowledge, they visited the same town once again. This time they came riding in a carriage that was drawn by 6 horses. They directed the driver to take them directly to the home of the butcher. Well, when the rich man heard that 2 such illustrious rabbis were in his town, he sent them a message that he would be more than honored if they would stay at his mansion. Well, they responded. They responded by sending the carriage with the 6 horses to his home. When the carriage arrived, the rich man went out to personally greet his illustrious guests. However, when he opened the door to the carriage, it was empty. He was a bit confused. So he went to the butcher's house and asked the brothers why they had sent only the carriage and horses to his house. They said to him, well, that they had previously asked him for hospitality and that he had refused and had sent them to the home of the butcher. They told him that the only difference that they saw between themselves then and now was the carriage and the horses. So we sent you both. The Mishnah continues with, do not converse excessively with a woman. They said this even about one's own wife. How much more so does it apply to another man's wife? The Mishnah goes on to explain the reason for this advice. The Mishnah sages said that anyone who converses excessively with a woman causes evil to himself, neglects Torah study, and in the end will eventually inherit purgatory. Now it's interesting that the Mishnah does not warn women to limit their conversation with men. It only warns men to limit their conversation with women. Limiting men's conversations with women is really quite logical. The words in the 3rd paragraph of the Shema Yisrael warns us not to go after your heart and your eyes. The question is, why does the Torah mention your heart before your eyes? Well, men are true animals by nature. Their hearts constantly desire sex. It doesn't take much to activate the key to their desire. Just talking to a woman, letting your eyes gaze upon her physical assets, is enough to activate all systems. So too with the wife, especially when she is in a state of nida, menstruation, as it states in Mishnah and Proverbs. Mayim genuvim yimtoku. Stolen waters are sweet. The reality is that water is never sweet. Yet somehow the side of evil is able to make us view something that is forbidden, though it is tasteless, as something that is sweet. In addition, Rabbeinu Yonah stated that idle talk with a woman, by its very nature, causes the neglect of Torah. The Talmud in the Tractate of Sanhedrin tells the story of the men of the Great Assembly. After the return of the nation from the Babylonian exile, they fasted for 3 days. And they prayed to God that he remove the desire from idol worship from the world, since it was that had brought about the destruction of the first temple. Well, God agreed. They then decided to pray that God should also remove the second greatest desire in the world, sex. Once again, God agreed. However, the result was that even a chicken didn't lay an egg for 7 days. That being the case, they had no other alternative but to return that desire back to the world. So this was and still is the greatest challenge that mankind faces, sexual immorality. This is the reason that Rabbi Yossi ben Yochanan put up a fence. It was his intent to assist men in overcoming their evil inclination when it comes to the desire for intimacy, not just with a stranger, but even with one's own wife. One suggestion that can assist a man in overcoming this challenge is to limit extraneous conversation with women. This statement connects with the Talmud in the Tractate of Bava Metzia, which relates the story of Avraham Avinu and his hospitality that he extended to the 3 wayfarers that visited his tent after his circumcision. The Torah in the portion of Vayera stated that Avraham Avinu told his wife Sarah to prepare cakes for his guests. Initially, she asked him, "Should I make the cakes from meal, an inferior flour?" No, he responded, "No, fine flour." The sages state that since she did not choose the fine flour on her own, she is deemed as being a bit less generous than him. From this account written in the Torah, our sages suggest that a woman is stingier than a man towards guests. Now, I would think that the reason it may well be that this is true is that women are generally the ones who actually prepare the meals, and in addition, they are more practical by nature. The Mishnah is therefore advising a husband, forego talking with your wife now. and just open up your home wide to the poor. The less said, the better. The word sicha means idle talk, which suggests that a husband should attempt to elevate his daily conversations with his wife, so that the sicha should be kept to a minimum. Not only that, many times those idle conversations, well, they turn into the grievous sin of lashon hara, talebearing. Seeing that a man feels very comfortable with his wife, he may be more easily led to share information with her that should have really been kept private. The Mishnah suggests that one should not speak excessively with ha'isha, the woman, again the extra hey, not just any woman in general, but it alludes to a specific woman, one whom you are physically attracted to. It's interesting that the Mishnah uses the word yoresh, inherit, purgatory, rather than yored, will go down to purgatory. Our sages tell us that when one speaks lashon hara about another individual, well, they inherit all the sins of the person of whom they spoke about. Words matter. So the bottom line, cater to the needs of the poor and downtrodden. Whenever possible, attempt to be in the company of Torah scholars. Hospitality is a major pillar in Judaism. We learn this from the story of Avraham Avinu, Abraham, our father, who was in the company of God in the portion of Vayera, and yet he excused himself to cater to the needs of 3 strangers who were in need of hospitality. Guard your mouth and your eyes when it relates to members of the other sex, especially with your own wife during times of abstention. I hope you found this lecture interesting and informative. May God bless you with the strength and wisdom to follow the advice of the sages. Next week, God willing, we will continue with the 6th Mishnah in the chapter. Again, let us continue to pray for a swift and complete victorious end to the war in the Middle East, with the total annihilation of Iran and all of her proxies. Let us celebrate the return of all the hostages, those that were alive and those that are dead. May God Almighty cure the sick and injured, comfort all the mourners, and return home all the brave IDF soldiers led by Mashiach Tzidkenu. May he come quickly and in our time. Again, let me thank you for attending, for listening. God should bless you and yours with all that's good, happiness, health, and again, success. Please, if you will, push the like button, subscribe, and again, share with your friends. It's amazing. People don't realize the great wisdom and knowledge that we have in Torah. Share it with people. They'll appreciate you much more. God bless, be well, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you again for attending.